Quiet luxury, at least according to the internet, is a lifestyle choice that prioritizes quality and craftsmanship over flashy, obvious, conspicuous consumption, emphasizing timelessness and refinement with a focus on investment pieces and curated collections. Take the Model 10 from Marantz I'm reviewing today and its corresponding components, the Link 10N network streamer and SACD10. These seem to follow the quiet luxury guidelines to the letter. The question is, are audiophiles ready to accept a tried and true brand like Marantz taking on this direction? And perhaps more importantly, has the brand done enough to capture this kind of higher end consumer? Before we dive deeper into that subject, let's take a look at Marantz's newest flagship amplifier, the Model 10. While the 10 shares some visual DNA with other Marantz products like the Model 40N, this roughly 74-pound or 33.7 kilogram amps build quality and copper-plated chassis is a solid sign that Marantz is going after a new audience. The Model 10 is a true dual mono Class D amplifier co-developed by Purify, capable of producing 250 watts into an 8-ohm load and 500 watts into a 4-ohm load, delivering power to your speakers through two sets of high-quality binding posts, which can also be configured for by wiring or by amping. Similar to the musical Fidelity NU-VISTA 600.2 I recently reviewed, the Model 10 is an all-analog affair. There are no built-in DACs, streamers, or wireless technology of any kind. Instead, you get 4 analog audio inputs, which include a built-in phono preamp capable of supporting both moving magnet and moving coil cartridges that can be adjusted based on the output of your cartridge. There are 2 balanced analog inputs, bringing the total number of inputs to 6. The Model 10 can also be operated in a strict amplifier-only mode when used with a separate preamp, or can be connected to a separate amplifier using its preamp outputs, both of which you can access using either balanced or unbalanced connections. And for those of you still rocking reel-to-reel, there's even an unbalanced line output. While the Model 10 is simple in appearance and input-output options, it's not lacking in functionality. The center-mounted porthole display can be configured to show either the system's level and input or digital meters, which is a nice touch. Using the included remote and the large circular display, you also gain access to the Model 10's numerous adjustments that include tone and balance controls, which Marantz labels as trim on the 10. There are also different equalizer settings based on the type of impedance of your phono cartridge. Other customization options for adjusting the brightness of the amplifier's front panel and internal lighting are also available, which can also be disabled for the highest quality playback, at least according to Marantz. When the Model 10 first arrived, the first thing I did was grab our Cornwall 4s. I later hooked the amp up to the Concept 50s from Q Acoustics before resting on the Sonus Faber Concertino Maestro Edition bookshelf speakers that had just arrived for review. With a lower impedance of 4 ohms and a reported sensitivity of 85 dB, the Sonus Fabers hunger for a beefy amplifier despite their smaller size, and the Model 10 provided plenty of headroom and control. Since we weren't sent the Link 10N, I used my reference Eversolo A8 to stream music through Tidal. Remember, the Marantz Model 10 does not have any digital or wireless connectivity. I also paired the 10 with the new 98-inch TCL QM7K and our Apple TV 4K using the Eversolo's HDMI port. Now, to test the Model 10's internal phono preamp, I used our Alva TT V2 and its factory-configured high-output moving coil cartridge. Now, if an amplifier's sole job is to amplify the incoming signal clearly with no added distortion or compromise and then send that signal out to the loudspeaker with no regard for its make, model, or brand, then yes, I could make the argument that the 10 is perfect. Now, if you're someone who pays no mind to this purist mentality, it is also entirely possible that you may not gravitate to the Marantz's sound. For me, music is all about emotion. I'm sure everyone has a song or two that stirs up something in you. It's tracks like Mama by Beth Hart or Hamburg Song by Keane. These are songs that always pull at my heartstrings. And neither are particularly brilliant recordings, by the way. Still, the emotions, the sadness, pain, anger, and even forgiveness are what come through, making the quality of these recordings themselves secondary. In the case of Mama, the nakedness of Hart's vocals through many systems can actually border on harsh and even fatiguing. I know I have winced once or twice over the years when using this song to demo gear. Yet when listening to either of these tunes, even on our Cornwall 4s with no added adjustments or EQ, they sounded pedestrian. While Hamburg's song isn't an up-tempo bop, there's still a subtle roughness presence, an uneasy, unsure tone to its chords, and yet through the Model 10, none of that really came through. Which raises a question for me. I mean, is there such a thing as too perfect when it comes to audio? If you ask those who are more spec-obsessed, you'll get a resounding no. But for me, there is. Just look at the NAD M33. The M33 remains a technological achievement of the highest order. An integrated amp that is without fault, at least in our testing, and yet, I can't say that I always enjoyed listening to it. Do I appreciate it? Yes. Enjoyed? It could depend on the day, I guess. The Marantz Model 10 is similar in many ways. I appreciate its neutrality, its precision, and attention to detail, but in its quest for perfection, I missed the emotional connection, so I'm torn. And I understand that sound quality is largely subjective and that everything I just said will undoubtedly resonate with some while drawing the ire of others. Nevertheless, it is my job to tell you what I think and, more importantly, how I feel about a product. I believe the Model 10 has a lot going for it, and if I had to guess, when subjected to more stringent analytical testing, it's going to impress. But when I close my eyes and attempt to travel back to a time and place so many songs can transport me to, I feel disconnected. So what could be causing this disconnect? For me, it's about dynamics. I know I normally comment on the bass, mid-range, and treble performance before jumping to dynamics, but honestly, there isn't much to say about the Marantz's timbre. Bass is textural, deep, and controlled, especially at higher volumes, with the mid-range being as neutral as they're likely to come, with the highs being extended, detailed, but maybe ever so slightly rolled off, though I think the latter has more to do with how the Model 10 handles dynamics. And just to be clear, I'm talking about dynamics, not dynamic range. Dynamic range refers to the difference between the lowest and highest notes. While audiophiles obsess about quality recordings and their supposed dynamic range, this is not the same as dynamics. Dynamics, at least to me, is the speed, the immediacy with which sonic differences reveal themselves. While it's easy to trick oneself into believing something is more dynamic by increasing the volume, dynamics can be just as much about the quiet moments as it is the loud ones. The Model 10 excels at separating the layers of a recording and presenting them with the clarity and focus one would expect from an amplifier of this pedigree. It even features one of the quietest backgrounds I've heard from a modern amplifier. But when it comes to explosiveness, urgency, hell, violence, the Model 10 is far too tame, hence my disconnect. Take the synthetic claps that lead into the chorus of In the Closet by Michael Jackson. These claps should grab your attention. They should be jarring, even violent, and yet through the Model 10, they were polite. Textural, yeah. Dimensional, you bet. But even with in-room volumes well over 85 dB and being played back through horn-loaded speakers like the Cornwall 4s, they barely got my attention. This happened time and time again. I don't want to call the Model 10 downy soft, but when directly compared to our 2-watt Deckware Zen, the Model 10 didn't possess the same snap and contrast as the single-ended triode tube amp. Now, if I turn things up, yes, some immediacy could be injected into the performance, and along with it, a greater sense of scale, but we can't always listen at 11. One of the Model 10's more notable features is its adjustable moving magnet moving coil phono stage. First off, the adjustability of the stage is first rate, and I really appreciate being able to make adjustments using the remote rather than having to fiddle with small switches, as is often the case with many audiophile phono stages. Now, sonically, the phono stage doesn't differ much, if any, from the sound I've already described. Throughout much of Marantz's marketing, they emphasize the Model 10's warmer tone, and concerning its phono preamp, I agree with them. The Model 10's already polite demeanor aids in bringing about a slightly greater feeling of warmth or roundness to vinyl playback, which you might find agreeable, if not preferable. When listening to Church's Screen Violence, much of the album's, rougher qualities, if not outright poor mastering, were mitigated through the Marantz, which I would argue is a net positive. Now, in contrast, Abe Brown's confidence to make mistakes was too subdued for my tastes. Again, it's just that lack of dynamics that keep what I'm sure is an otherwise stellophono preamp from sounding as amazing as I'm sure it could. So getting back to the concept of quiet luxury, what differentiates a genuine luxury product from the next is often in the details. I appreciate the lengths the designers went to in creating and constructing the Model 10, but I don't think they went far enough, especially given its $15,000 price tag. Now, if we reverse the clocks for a moment, I think most of us can agree that Marantz set the stage for what their new look was going to be with the Model 30. But that was 5 years ago, which is like 10 in tech years. And when I put my art director hat on, I'm not sure I agree with the choice to just leave the Model 10's design well enough alone, especially when trying to appeal to a more discerning clientele. As I've gotten older, more and more, true craftsmanship is something I can't get enough of. When I look at the Model 10, I can't help but see the dashboard of, say, a Rolls-Royce or a Bentley. I mean, just imagine a true mechanical meter in the style of IWC or a JLC watch, perfectly centered on the matte black aluminum fascia instead of, another digital display. Taking things a step further, how about a solid piece of walnut below the floating aluminum face instead of Marantz's, I hate to say it, played out carbon fiber look? The presence of wood would not only clearly differentiate the Model 10 from the existing Marantz line, but it would also call back to the more classic pieces, such as the Marantz stereo console, without being an outright throwback or reissue. Lastly, I believe that each Model 10 should be signed and numbered, similar to the plaques on every AMG or Aston Martin built engine. I understand that such flourishes don't enhance the Model 10's sonic performance, but they sure as heck enhance the ownership experience, not to mention the brand image. And these are two aspects worth considering when moving your products up market. And speaking of the user experience, the remote. The afterthought of just about every product that seemingly comes to market now. The remote isn't Pitt and Giblin bad, but it is far too similar to the remotes you'll find inside the boxes for the Model 40N and Cinema 50. For 15 grand, you have to think of everything. So, with 15 big ones to spend, what else might you consider? Starting with the musical Fidelity NU-VISTA 600.2. Both the Marantz and the NU-VISTA feature only analog connections, although, unlike the Model 10, the musical Fidelity is not Class D. The Model 10 is more powerful than the Class A AB NU-VISTA, but head-to-head and on the same speakers, I really doubt anyone's going to notice. The 2 amps couldn't look more different, and while I just got done talking about how I wish Marantz would have addressed the 10's looks, that doesn't mean the NU-VISTA is perfect. They're just different. Now, sonically, I prefer the musical Fidelity. It was more intelligible at all volumes, more detailed, and had more contrast top to bottom without needing to always push the volume to get there. The Model 10 is fantastic, especially if you are after a neutral amp, but you can experience similar levels of sonic bliss for less through the NU-VISTA 600.2. Now, another amp you might consider is the McINTOSH 7200. While Marantz has been associated with high-end audio, it's been a few decades since I last heard it mentioned alongside the likes of McINTOSH. Marantz has become more synonymous with AV receivers, producing some very heavy hitters, which has undoubtedly contributed to the brand's growth. That said, the Model 10 isn't appealing to the everyman or the receiver customer. It's appealing to McINTOSH customers who will be the first to tell you that they are locked down because McINTOSH already put a ring on it years ago. When you consider that the 7200 can do everything the Marantz can and more for about half the cost, it's actually the far better value. And when was the last time you could say that about McINTOSH? And if we have 15 grand to spend, I have to also imagine that options like Mark Levinson's number 5805 is on the table at just under $11,000. Then there's DiAgostino's Pendulum, which retails for the same as the Model 10. And don't forget the Past Labs integrated 250 at 13 grand. I mean, it's almost an apples to apples comparison to the Marantz, only the 250 is Class AB. All of these cater to the luxury market with brand cachet to match. And finally, turning my attention back to one of my all-time favorite Marantz pieces, the 40N. Look, The Model 10 is better, but for everyday listening using commonly available or popular mass market loudspeakers in real-world environments, the Model 10, it's probably overkill. For this type of customer, Marantz has already made a near-perfect solution in the Model 40N. And for those more digitally minded, there's the new Model M1, which for less than $1,000 may be the best overall product Marantz has made in a decade. So I suppose the silver lining to my critique is this. At high volumes and when driving difficult speakers, the Model 10 proved to be unflappable. Furthermore, due to its more neutral and polite demeanor, it is an amplifier that you can listen to for hours on end without fear of fatigue, regardless of the speaker connected to it, and that is to its credit. It ranks among one of the more trouble-free, call it tool-like amplifiers I've come across, in that it wasn't uncommon for me to forget it was even in our room. It never really took the stage and said, hey, check me out. And maybe that's the point and why the Model 10 should be celebrated. After all, isn't that what quiet luxury is all about? So that's it. That is now my take on Marantz's new Model 10 flagship amplifier. What did you guys think? What do you guys think? Where do you fall on the argument of too perfect, not emotional enough? How do you feel about dynamics? I raise a lot of questions. So let's get the conversation started. And if I missed a comparison or you have a very specific question, you know what to do. Leave it down in the comments. Never know, could end up in next week's Unplugged. Until then, thank you guys so much for watching. And remember, the only person who has to like the sound of your system is you. So happy listening, everybody. Thank you so very much for watching, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye.